Hello, hello. All right, so we are live. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this amazing first panel on a series dedicated to women in the blockchain gaming, NFT, and digital art industries. Really excited about all the replies we got about this event. So we initially started thinking we will do one single event, but seeing all the success and positive replies, we are going to run a series of events. So please watch out today. I hope there will be a lot of very good conversation, question, engagement with the audience. And we'll be running them next week, the week after, and the week after, and hopefully even more, which will be a really great sign to show how inclusive our industry is toward women and people from diverse origin. So without further ado, I'll be presenting very quickly the Blockchain Game Alliance, which is the host today for this event. The Blockchain Game Alliance is essentially a non-profit organization committed to the promotion of the adoption of blockchain technology within the video game industry. We are representing and spreading awareness about all the potential and benefits from this new technology in terms of decentralization, ownership by the players, NFTs, and how it can help players, developers, creators, and users in general to create, publish, play, build communities, monetize around video games. We also provide an open forum for individuals and companies to talk, share ideas, network together, potentially reach out to new users and create business opportunities. Our core activities essentially evolve around networking, research and reporting, representing games company, blockchain games company, and advocating for the blockchain in the game industry. I'll skip our plan, but we have various activities in 2020. We're getting quite busy with almost one event a week. If you start following us either on our Twitter or YouTube, you can watch the replay for those events and access them at any time. And it's always amazing how every week we are discovering a new project, new services, new games in this industry and what founders, entrepreneurs, creators are building with the blockchain. We have grown. We are really growing fast. We have now over 150 companies as part of the Blockchain Game Alliance. And we are always happy to welcome new members. So if you're interested, we'll put the link at the end of this presentation. Some of our recent activities included virtual meetups, work group, writing resources and knowledge to explain blockchain collectibles, non-fungible tokens, what is play to earn, running live interview with lawyers. We'll have one with investor next week, and many other activities like today. We're also offering free tickets to various events, as well as speaking opportunities to our members. And today, without any further ado, we are going to jump into this panel with 5 amazing panelists from various games companies that they will present themselves and will be discussing on how to be successful in blockchain gaming. Our speakers, we have Marguerite de Courcelles from Blockade Game, Ollie Atkinson from The Sandbox, Cynthia Huang from Altcoin Fantasy, who will be the host, Caroline Wend from Midbase, and Cathy Tedman from Dapper Labs. As you can see, we'll be running these events almost on a weekly basis. We already have the 2 next one ready for June 11th and June 18th, and we are now preparing the 4th panel. And one last thing, I would like to say thank you to our sponsors, namely AMD, Ubisoft, Matic, MakerDAO, and Animoca brands, which are strongly supporting and advocating for blockchain in gaming and in general. Thank you. All right, now if you want to join the Blockchain Game Alliance, you can follow us on Twitter, on Medium, our website, or Telegram. And that's it. That's it for my side. And now I'll give the main speaking slot to the ladies. And you have their contact details in any case. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sebastian and BGA, for putting on this event. We're super excited, and we can't wait to see the rest of the awesome events that are coming up. So be sure to tune in. So I'd love to get an intro from all of you fabulous ladies. Who are you? What's your background? What company do you work at? What do you do at that company? And, how did you actually get into blockchain and blockchain gaming? Maybe we can start with Carolyn, just because you're at the top there.
Right. So I'm Carolyn. I work at Mintbase, and we are an NFT creation tool focused on ticketing, but also on in-game assets and many other things. So my background is I come from the festival industry. I used to work in ticketing and in German Parliament as a research assistant. And I'm super excited to be here and meet the other women from this panel. And yeah.
Holly, do you want to go next?
Hi, yes, thank you for having me on the panel. I'm Holly Atkinson. I'm a blockchain developer at The Sandbox, which many viewers may know. It's a community-driven gaming platform. And I actually got into gaming through my involvement in blockchain. I wouldn't necessarily describe myself as a traditional gamer in that sense, although I do play from time to time. And my background is not gaming related in any sense, really. So I'm coming at this with relatively fresh eyes.
Awesome. Katie?
I'm Katie Tedman. I come from Dapper Labs. We have products such as CryptoKitties, NBA Top Shot, which is the new game we're releasing in the near future, and Flow, which is a blockchain that we're building to scale gaming and games to really be mainstream consumer sized. I come from a kind of consumer background. Most of my experience has been in the sports industry, working for Major League Sports in North America and broadcasters, with a focus on consumer engagement and analytics, which gives me a little bit of a different lens. Also don't come from the gaming world, but come from a world where we spend a lot of time trying to understand what fans want and what consumers want, and then trying to overserve on that.
Awesome. Marguerite?
Hey, everybody. Marguerite, Blockade Games. Blockade, you might know us for Plasma Bears and Neon District and Metaboss. So I've been in this space for a while. I actually got into blockchain crypto by mining with my gaming GPUs back way back when you could still do that. And then from there, started playing with the creative aspects of what can you do besides just money. And what can you do with digital money? And then how, when Dapper launched CryptoKitties, that kind of turned my world upside down, really opening up the possibilities of non-fungible assets. So we launched Blockade actually pretty much the month after CryptoKitties happened. And we've been working on Neon District for the past 2.5 years. So yeah, I guess that's me.
Awesome. Thank you all. It's great to have people from so many different companies, because then we really get a wide range of experiences and outlooks as well. So I'd really love to hear, because you guys you all do different things. Like some companies are games, some companies are minting NFTs. How would you define success for your company? What are you guys focusing on? And why are you focusing on that as a success KPI metric? Carolyn, I guess we can start with you again.
All right. So what is success for us? I think that's a really good question. So we have a different strategy than most companies. Most companies have like a go-to-market strategy, and they have their set KPIs they want to reach. For us, it's more like people ask us to build features. So we got into ticketing last year during Berlin Blockchain Week because someone asked us to use our NFTs for ticketing. Now currently we have like lots of artists using our platform, so over 660 unique stores have been created on our platform. Success for us is really like being close to our customers and like enabling people to create NFTs, but also to monetize them and make them useful. So we see NFTs as being like a liquid asset. So, for example, NFT can unlock, I don't know, your character in a video game that it runs faster, or maybe it also gives you entrance to a co-working space. So success for us is really seeing those tokens being useful, those tokens being used in video games on different platforms, being interoperable, like we involve as many companies as we can. We have a 3-box integration. We have, I don't know, 10 different wallets you can use to create your NFTs, and that's success for us. Yeah.
Awesome. Holly, I'd love to hear from you about the sandbox.
Absolutely. So with the sandbox, there really is a long-term vision there, which is what I love about it. So whilst the platform is tracking the traditional KPIs, as you could call them, in terms of number of users, user retention, time spent playing the game, and those metrics, there is a real aim there to increase the number of users over the short term, medium term, and long term. So 1 million users within the next 2 to 3 years, 10 million within 5 years, and then 100 million within 10 years. And that's really because the thinking process there is we want to appeal to a much broader audience, not just within blockchain. So it isn't just one game, it's a whole platform there that really will empower creators to take ownership of their gaming assets. And those are somewhat new metrics that we'll also be monitoring.
Awesome, thank you for that. Katie, would love to hear from you about Dapper, because you guys have a lot of different products. So I'm curious to know, whether you differ by product as well.
No, basically everything that we do is very similar to Sandbox. It's all aimed towards consumer adoption of blockchain technology. And so we've been saying for a long time that we think that gaming and consumer experiences, whether they're full, mobile style games or whether they're smaller gamified experiences, will be an entry point for people to enter the space. And so for us, it is very much users. I think it's important also to call out that revenue is important. I think everyone on this panel is working for an organization that wants to be a sustainable company. And there's a lot of experimentation that happens and like really great projects in the space. And we'd love to also help those projects find ways to be revenue positive, because unless we can find a way to both bring users into our ecosystem and make money as organizations, we're not going to survive. And so those two things, user numbers and revenue, are extremely important to us.
Great. Yeah, I think revenue is kind of a tricky one because with all of the companies in the space, we're all very early on, and obviously it's still fairly niche. So that's definitely a struggle that I think all of us grapple with, and we're all still testing and trying to figure out what the best monetization strategies are. Marguerite? Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Before you jump in, Marguerite, one thing that I wanted to add was that I think there are really amazing engineers in the blockchain space. There are really amazing designers and artists. But I think it's really important for those of us who are business people, and maybe we aren't the ones who are creating, but we're the ones who spend a lot of our time in spreadsheets and spend a lot of our times talking to people about partnerships and advocating in other industries for the space to also take a role there and say, if you I love this project, I think that this project is doing a great job. I can tell that they are incredible developers and designers, but perhaps they don't have the business acumen to say, here's what my P&L looks like, here's what my spreadsheet should look like, here's what my burn rate can look like. And I think that we can all help with that too. We do a lot of, the developer community does a phenomenal job of supporting each other, but I think the business community can do that as well.
Yeah, for sure. Great points. Marguerite?
Yeah, actually, so a lot of what everybody said, I guess, applies to Blockade as well. Blockade is looking to be in revenue and supporting our growth, our business growth based on that revenue. So we have different strategies right now we're rolling out that are aimed to scale with users. But I guess another metric for success is when we can roll out Neon District and it's hidden all the blockchain experiences so that a mainstream user is onboarding without knowing what blockchain is and then has that educational leap. I know that's not really specifically a KPI you can measure, but just that goal is something that we have been focusing on. Similar to Sandbox, we're targeting for the 1 million users within a year with the Neon District launch.
Awesome. Yeah. That's a great point, Marguerite. So I'm curious because you have a lot of experience in this space. I don't know if everyone here knows Marguerite's story, but it's really cool. She actually created the genre known as crypto puzzles. And so she created these really cool artistic puzzles where if you solve them, you actually get a private key. And one of them actually had, was it 4.58 Bitcoin or something, which was a really nice surprise. So I'd love to hear, because you have experience in making it really fun and interesting for people to think about crypto and blockchain. Like, how have you guys, through the different games that you've produced, looked at crypto adoption and tried to get people into crypto so that, you know, blockchain isn't first, but blockchain is hidden, like you were mentioning?
Yeah, so we did with Plasma Bears, we rolled that out about a year ago. It was a tech demo, or a little over a year ago now. It was one of the first, I think it was the first free-to-play blockchain game. One of the things we saw with the blockchain game space is that you have to buy these assets for a game in order to play the game without having any idea what the assets do within the game. So that's a really big barrier to entry. So instead of so we wanted to see what happened when you just were able to mint assets on a layer 2 and the user had they didn't have to have a wallet and they didn't have to pay anything for that minting process. So when we did that, we actually, in that first month, we had minted 500,000 assets on the layer 2, which was the Loom network at the time. And it was also a private chain. So because it was a demo, we didn't make it in a way that we were going to keep building on. We weren't planning on keeping to build on it, but actually people still play it. So we're kind of being forced to revisit it because we didn't think that it was going to live this long. But anyways, that free-to-play experience was, I'd say, the thing that started to prove our theories that we can get these assets into people's hands. And using those assets, then we were dropping them on social media because you didn't have to have a wallet to claim it. We're starting to see the same sort of user experience development now with for NFT artists. Is it link drop? There's some other really cool ways that people are trying to get assets into people's hands.
Awesome. So just kind of trying to make it so that regardless of you having a wallet or not, you don't need to do that to start playing the game.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. I think this idea of free-to-play is actually really interesting because that is, I think, one barrier that is a little bit different from traditional gaming. A lot of games have this idea of free-to-play, and then obviously there's in-app purchases. And so I'd love to hear, like, first from you, Marguerite, but then from maybe Carolyn or maybe Katie as well, about what is your opinion on free-to-play? Is that sort of what we should do to get more people into gaming, and then once they see if they like the game, then they can start to buy NFTs to actually play within the game?
Yeah, so the free-to-play model is very successful, right? I mean, look at Fortnite, and there's that model is proven. So we don't have to go and find a new business model to get gamers excited. Like, we just have to do it right. The thing that can break that experience, though, is introducing a new economy that's open, and then that free-to-play model kind of it can break. So you have to protect the different economies and separate the value and how the gamer is achieving value within their assets. So if they're feeling like this is an investment, what are they putting into these assets to, like, is it money? Is it time? How does that break out? And how does that affect the actual the monetization that the business has? So we've been looking at that in a way where the assets are collectible, really focus on the art, really focus on how they can evolve through the gameplay. And then the seasons limited edition experience. So I guess, yeah, we're trying to look at that collectible intrigue that the assets already have and focusing there, as opposed to thinking about creating a whole economy for a metaverse at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really glad you brought up game balancing and game economies, because it's the hardest part of what we work on. Balancing a game economy is hard to start out with. If it was easy, then everybody would be making games, would be making successful games. And then when you create a dual economy where you have NFTs and non-NFTs, that also creates an extra level of complexity, which amplifies it by a kabillion. And so I'm really glad you brought that up, because it's one of the things that is most difficult. But I think when we start to better understand how to do that, and how to do that in a way that players feel good about, we're really going to unlock something special, because we can do that onboarding of free-to-play players who can come in and then ramp themselves up into blockchain, rather than, one of the things we always talk about is you don't come and play a game because it's maybe now the community does, but generally people don't come and play a game because of the underlying technology. The underlying technology enables you to do something better than the previous technology did. And so blockchain itself is almost a service to a great game, rather than the game being a blockchain game and then kind of struggling through playing is the future that we want to see. And I think, Marguerite, you guys are the same way.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's funny because in the blockchain space, it's traditionally been sort of like technology first, because it is what's made the industry different. But definitely for gaming, it has to be that the experience comes first, because, for a gamer, they don't really care about the technology at all. It's like, is this game better? Is it more fun? And then if it enables me to do something cool, like bring this NFT to another game or have it have real world value, then that's sort of secondary to the experience itself, because people play games because they want to escape and live in this alternate world, not because they want to think about how cool this technology is. So yeah, definitely. Carolyn, I'd love to hear from you, because you have kind of like the NFT side of things. So what is your take on kind of the free-to-play experience? Is that going to become more and more important?
So I can relate more from like an NFT creation perspective, because Mintbase is a platform which enables gamer or other people to create their non-fungible tokens. And we have a similar model. We have like a free to mint model. So I think it's really, really important at the beginning when people are not familiar, and most of them are not because it's a new technology, to let them try out like how to create an NFT. What the heck is an NFT? Like, it's so difficult to explain to my parents what an NFT is. But when I tell them, okay, so maybe it's like an in-game asset, which makes their character run faster, or it's a ticket, or it's like, like a Reiki healing session, they understand what it is. So it's really important at the beginning to provide a free platform where people can try out what it is. And one more thing, which is super important for me or for us, Katie, I love CryptoKitties, and I love like NFTs being collectibles. That was awesome. But I think now we're at another stage where NFTs are more than just a collectible. Like they really have value when they give me something. Like maybe a ticket gives me voting power. Maybe I can vote on who is supposed to speak. Or the shoe collectible, also like in a video game, makes me redeem it for a real Nike shoe. And I think that's super important. As soon as people understand, okay, it gives me value, and it's more than just something I hold in my wallet. At this point, like it will like click, and more people will get into that NFT space.
Yeah, that's great. I think that actually leads really well to Holly, because you guys are building out Sandbox, which is this virtual world. And so even though you can buy a piece of land, you can actually do so much with that land. So I'd love to hear about, what you guys are planning for the future in terms of how free-to-play might fit into that eventual virtual world.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I completely agree with what's just been said about free-to-play and the Sandbox. The idea is that it will be free to play to a point, with a focus on game standards to attract players, because as Marguerite emphasized, that's what's going to get new players to come and check it out. So we really feel that the blockchain aspects, the NFT aspects, bring a lot of benefits, but there's a time to bring that in. So for instance, when do you make the user bring a wallet on board or get an account, something like that? We can push that back, for instance, until they've had a go at the game. they are engaged and an avatar has been created. There's some sort of identifying with a narrative or a character there. But really, the blockchain, the NFT side, the underlying components bring in a lot more power to the user, where you've talked about abilities in terms of gaming assets, so characters running faster. There will be that aspect, but there will also be a native token where the community will really drive how the platform develops. So whilst every owner of land will be able to build on that land, there will also be the ability to govern the platform, to really drive a community process towards growth in that capacity. But I think that is not the initial step. The initial step is the game standards, bringing on board creators, and really developing the product itself, making sure the actual gaming product is of a high standard there. This isn't easy to do, I guess. There are lots of different components that the blockchain needs to tie together. And the blockchain is really a tool, as I see it. It isn't the first value proposition in that sense. It is the connecting part that will connect together the voxel editor, the marketplace, and the game maker with the actual front end there. So yeah, there's a lot to do.
Yeah, for sure. I think, blockchain obviously enables us to create this real world value using NFTs, which opens up this entire marketplace and ecosystem, which is really great. But then the challenge with incorporating blockchain is that there's an onboarding problem, which is probably the biggest challenge to blockchain gaming becoming more mainstream. So, I'd love to really hear how you guys have thought about the onboarding problem and are trying to address it. So, Katie, for example, I'd love to hear from you, because you guys are, such a great consumer company. You've done, wonderful things with CryptoKitties and bringing that more to a mainstream audience. And now you guys have NBA coming up, which is, I think, going to expand that even more. So I'd love to hear about, the methodology that you guys are bringing to the idea of onboarding people, and especially people who might not know anything about blockchain or don't want to have a wallet, or never plan to do that.
Yeah, definitely. Before I talk about onboarding, I just want to be on record rejecting the hypothesis that there has to be some real world perk that you get for an NFT. I think the art space has shown that there can be deep intrinsic value to assets without having to, if I put a Basquiat on my wall, I don't have to, have access to a, special art gallery showing in order to find value to that. So I think that we shouldn't think about digital assets different than we think about physical assets. We think about it in two ways. One is intrinsic value. I care about this thing because I care about this thing. I love the way it looks. I want to collect it for the sake of collecting. And then pairing that with an extrinsic value, which is either a real life perk or value in game, or even just the premise that you can actually resell that and not be in violation of terms of service. We look at both of those things together, but I wholeheartedly reject that something can't have intrinsic value, because things have intrinsic value to us all the time. A picture that your kid drew has a value to you that has a value to no one else. The jersey that's hanging in my closet of a retired player has a huge amount of value to me and doesn't necessarily have any value, any market value, or any kind of extrinsic value otherwise. So I think, I don't think we have to think about that in a binary way. I think we can think about what the intrinsic value to some assets are and what the extrinsic value to other assets are. And I worry sometimes that when we talk about NFTs as being perk driven, that blockchain isn't necessarily adding that much to that experience. Loyalty programs are something that have existed in a centralized space for a long time. And frankly, it's harder to use blockchain than it is to use other technologies. And so let's just make sure that it's not setting up a false dichotomy there. On the user onboarding side, though, we are doing some stuff on Flow that is going to make it really easy for basketball fans to get into NBA Top Shot. Our primary flow to register for an account is a username and password. There are no plugins. By creating an account, you are also your account creation sets up a custodial wallet, which in the future you'll be able to kind of unhook as you progressively decentralize yourself. And in that way, it'll feel like logging onto anything else online. There won't be any friction in that login process. And then the purchase process is credit card first. So when mainstream fans are exposed to buy an NFT through NBA Top Shot, which will be in packs. So when you go to buy a pack, your first flow will be a regular credit card purchase, the same way you would see it anywhere else on the internet. There'll be the option for people to opt into crypto payment. So again, rather than saying this is a credit card payment or this is a crypto payment, it's a spectrum. We can create opportunities for people to decide how they want to interact with these platforms. And so whether you're buying a pack of Top Shots with your credit card or with Ether or with Bitcoin, both of which are enabled, or with any kind of number of tokens that we can uncover through APIs that we're using. It's about removing friction. And I actually asked the CryptoKitties team to pull some data for me so that we had some real numbers to share of things that we've experienced. And so thank you, Jordan and Daniela, if you're watching. But this removal of friction has been very important to us, and I think very important to many people across the industry. And one of the things that CryptoKitties did, which is like kind of just a small example and isn't that like broad scale like NBA fan friction removal, is that we use a kind of hypothesis driven way that we decide how to build features. And so we saw people in Discord showing off their kitties, creating basically what were collections, but not within our environment. And we said that's something that our players want to do. So instead of creating friction where they have to go somewhere else to do that, let's build in a feature, remove the friction, and allow them to self-organize their content. Creating collections increased average transactions by 30%, and putting it on the homepage increased engagement by 300%. And so that's just a simple example of, listening to fans, listening to players and users and saying, what are the things that they need? We know mainstream consumers need a frictionless experience for onboarding, but we also know that once people are onboarded, they need a frictionless experience in order to play the games that we're building or participate in the experiences we're building in a way that enables them. And I think that empowerment is kind of the way that we think about it, whether it's logging in, whether it's creating a collection, which by the way was a great feature to build in CryptoKitties. We're already built that in NBA Top Shot because we know it's a thing. And then continuing to learn, and hopefully in forums like this, sharing that data and sharing those experiences with each other so that we can help each other prioritize things like that.
Yeah, that's amazing. Wow. I mean, those are huge increases in numbers for sure. Marguerite, I think you had mentioned a little bit about this, about how you were doing these like link drops. I'd love to hear about your experiences in that, how you guys came to think about doing, giving an NFT that way, and what kind of numbers you might have around engagement or adoption.
So actually, Dapper and Blockade have pretty similar philosophies. We actually had chatted a lot about user experience. So when I talked before about the custodial wallet, or someone not needing to have a wallet to start. So in the application, then you have basically the company taking care of your initial assets. And the idea here is that all of these assets they're basically not valuable at all in the market. And then as a player increases value with their assets, they have the opportunity and are prompted to understand what it is to get a non-custodial wallet. And then us on the back end take care of how all of this flows easily. So the experience for you doesn't really change. You just have changed your settings, essentially. When I talked about doing drops, when we did partnerships historically, like with Plasma Bears, we did a bear that was branded for a different company. They had an email subscription list of something like 50,000 users. So we airdrops to all of their emails a bear that was branded with them as a thank you, and the open rate on that was actually 40%. So that was pretty cool. So yeah, I guess like it's a next generation spam technique, I suppose. But it has value, like Katie says. The intrinsic and extrinsic value is I think really cool. I do believe this idea of the art. So we've been working at Blockade. This is kind of a tangent, but with all these cool artists making digital work, everything from GIFs to really fine work within the game platform. It's so neat to be able to display these things as, especially, so in Neon District, it's a 2D game. So we'll have and you could do this in a 3D game too, but the texture mapping and being able to display different artists' work, even on a way that it could flip through in different places. You have a billboard in one scene. People could pay to have their work featured in different areas of the game if there's more traffic. And so I'm excited about being able to bridge that gap and give those artists the extra utility. We're doing this a little bit with MetaBoss. MetaBoss is so it's a free-to-play game. The requirement is you have to have NFTs. So if you have NFTs in a wallet, then it's an MMO. It's metaboss.gg, and the game reads your wallet and gives you basically stats to contribute to a team that you pick. And these teams go head to head over the course of a week. Then at the end, everybody's paid out a token. It's an ERC20 token plus an in-game currency. And then you have access to this marketplace on OpenSea to use that token and buy different NFTs with it. And you can keep building up your collection. But in that game, for example, we're supporting not just game assets, but we are supporting artists' assets as well. So I'm really excited that we're bridging this gap with what are all these possibilities with NFTs. Sorry to totally hijack that question.
No, that's great. And I think that, thanks to Katie for bringing this up, because if you think about NFTs not necessarily having real world value, I think we see that in gaming today, where people love games, they love buying things like skins, and there's no inherent value in that, right? But it's just this idea of being able to personalize that experience and make it your own. And I think that definitely it's good for us to keep that in mind in bringing that into blockchain gaming as well, because definitely with art, people collect art just because they love what it represents or how it looks, and nothing because of the real world value necessarily. So yeah, definitely good to keep that in mind. In terms of product development, I would love to hear how you guys think about future building and what you decide to actually implement. So Carolyn, I'd love to hear from you about this, because I know you mentioned that when you guys first started, it was because one of the conferences came up and wanted you to mint something. So how have you continued to look at product development based on feedback that you're getting from users?
Basically, so our entire platform is very consumer or customer focused platform. So we have many customers who are crypto artists, and they asked us for features. So right now we are building like a sound NFT feature, which will allow like DJs to upload sound files and larger files. Sparrow, who's also speaking next week, I think, at this panel, she like helped a lot, like giving us a lot of tips and what she needs. And we are like entirely like driven by our customers. We never like build anything without it being used for like a broader community. So that's really exciting to see like how that develops as well. And just one more thing, crypto art, of course, like there needs to be no physical value, and it has value. This was maybe misunderstood. Like our platform is like a platform for crypto art, of course. And but I see like a trend, especially in video games as well, where you get something, right? Like you get a different skin, I don't know, tone, a different hat or something like that if you personalize your NFT. So it always gives you something. So the trend is like definitely like personalization, but also like opening up different worlds, unlocking other features. And I'm super excited. The artists like are such experimenters on our platform. Like split fee function and royalty fees are also super important features we are building right now. So basically we are a team of 2 people, Mintbase, it's Nate and myself, and we are in contact with many artists, and we're building what they need.
Awesome. Holly, I'd love to hear from you because you guys have this entire world, this virtual world ahead of you. So how are you guys determining what to build next? Because I'm sure there's so many options for you guys to go in the different directions.
Absolutely. So we released the alpha of the Game Maker last week, which is a tool for game making with a no-code approach. And this will enable a short list of creators there to provide feedback on features to adapt or include or remove in this game maker. I think we're expecting feedback around August, with a public beta in December targeted. So there really is a feedback loop there with about, I think it's around 100 people there providing input to the game maker. So we really want to be a community-driven platform. We are seeking that feedback. So absolutely looking to engage with the community there. It isn't necessarily a predefined route in that sense. We want to hear from people who are going to be building.
Awesome, yeah, for sure. So I'd love to hear what most excites you guys about blockchain gaming. Maybe we can start with Marguerite.
Oh, okay. Okay. I guess for me, to be honest, I'm really excited about the potential of DAOs and community-driven development milestones, because right, for the indie developers, it's pretty hard to get funding. And just if you want to make prototypes or demo ideas and get a group together, and then to have a little bit of money to flush that out and see if it's on track, just that iterative building. I love the idea of seeing that kind of development work alongside a DAO, and moving away from the VC model that we've seen so much in the cryptocurrency space, but more of what the community wants and giving that power to the user. So I guess I'm really excited about that next 5-year trajectory.
Awesome. Katie, I know you guys are doing a lot in terms of like bringing on more mainstream brands. So I'd love to hear about kind of what you guys have on the roadmap and what you're super excited about in terms of what that means for consumer adoption.
So I'm a huge basketball fan. So there's nothing about NBA Top Shot that's not exciting to me. I'm like freaking out about everything. But the thing I actually tried to avoid working on CryptoKitties back in the day. I've been with Dapper Labs and before that Axiom Zen for 3 years. So before CryptoKitties even launched. And the thing that like turned my perspective on being really interested in blockchain was the shift in relationship between a consumer and the things they love. So in basketball, most of what I do is give. So I, as a consumer, give money for merchandise. I give my time. I may give my platform if I'm constantly tweeting about sports, which I clearly am. Sorry, everyone in blockchain who follows me. But blockchain switches that relationship where now I can participate in the economy of basketball. I can own things that I love, but I can also sell those things, and I can kind of have this more two-way street with a value exchange. And I think it is really empowering to consumers to participate in the economy of the things that you care about and you love and you have a strong avidity for. And so that switch of, I think that it's going to be, it was actually a kind of night and day mental switch for me. And I think as more mainstream consumers make that mental switch, it is not going to make sense to spend money on the internet in ways where you cannot participate in that value in that economy. And that's crazy. That's like a huge shift in consumer behavior. It's a huge shift in empowerment of consumers. And it really, like, even just on a personal level, makes me feel like I can have more value from the value that I generate for these brands that I love and who, create a product that I care about. And so I'm super fired up about that. I think it's so exciting. I am a collector of sports memorabilia. I have like quite a duffel bag full of crap from over a decade in the sports industry. And I love that stuff, but it sits in a duffel bag and it doesn't, I don't have any way to show it off, and I don't have any way for it to be part of my public persona or part of really what's becoming merged between your private and public persona as we spend more time in a digital space. So just this like concept of empowerment, the concept of value transfer and power transfer, I think is really exciting and I think is inevitable. And so I'm glad that all of us have an opportunity to help help continue to drive that. And whether it's sports or art or music or anything else, I think it's the same.
I love that. Yeah, I think, as we spend so much more time in the digital world, especially with, COVID-19, we're just spending so much more time online. We get to really shape who we are online and what that means. And so I love your metaphor, Katie, where if you love basketball, you can't bring a basketball around with you to show off. But, if you have an online avatar and you have an NFT, then you can kind of show that off, which is really cool. What about you, Hallie? Like, what excites you about Sandbox? I know you guys have so many cool things coming up, and I love that, more and more we have the ability to create who we are online and live in this digital world. Maybe one day we'll never go outside and we'll all just be living online.
So I think for me, there are two parts to this. The first part is Marguerite touched on the idea of the DAO. Really, with the Sandbox, all content that is contributed will work towards increasing the value of the utility token, the token that's going to be called Sand, and that will, we hope, lead towards the growth of the platform and really empower all parties involved, so creators, artists, traditional gamers, casual gamers, whatever. The other side of that for me is within each of the lands that is sold within the metaverse, we could potentially see a different kind of game. And I'm really excited to see the sorts of games that can be brought into the Sandbox world now. I think what I'm hoping we will see from new creators, new artists, and really empower more people to get involved and join and show their talents, and we can give that back to them, the ownership of the creations that will remain with them throughout that whole process.
Awesome. And Carolyn, I'd love to hear from you. You again see kind of like more the NFT side. So are there any trends that you're seeing with that get you really excited?
Yeah, so I'm super excited about this whole concept of interoperability and decentralization. I mean, we know the world is, it feels like it's going down, and it's very unfair, like big corporations, making money of people, of creators, of artists. And I'm so excited to be part of a trend or of a platform where we empower people to make money themselves, maybe they sell a crypto art piece and they exhibit it in crypto voxels in Decentraland, or in another game, maybe like a gamer runs to a level, and if he comes really fast, then he gets an artwork from, I don't know, Ilan Katin or Sparrow or something like that. So that's super exciting. It empowers people. It makes them independent, and that's what I'm excited about. At the end of the day, we are all, I think, all of us are here because we want to make the world a better place and empower people. And that's the most exciting field for me right now to be in, to change something in this world.
Yeah, definitely. I think that, with the last recession, we saw a lot of really interesting companies come out of that, the sharing economy. And so I think with blockchain and NFTs, it's going to be really fascinating to see the new kind of jobs that arise out of that. And I think that world is going to look quite different, which is amazing. So kind of the final topic that I really want to touch on is the idea of women in blockchain, or sort of diversity in blockchain. Obviously, there's a lot of discourse right now with what's happening, and I think it's a really important topic for us to think about. So, I'd love to hear about your experiences so far about what it's been like working as a woman in blockchain and blockchain gaming. maybe we can start with Marguerite.
I think I don't know if I've had the normal experience because over the years built such a supportive fan group or community alongside my work. So I don't think I've that initial starting period, I was highly supported. Whereas I've seen though other women trying to start and break into this space and maybe successful in other places, but having a hard time being accepted. So I've tried to do my part by supporting other women in the space. One of my favorite girlfriends in the space is Josie, and anybody that ever, if you're a woman and you're trying to make your way, definitely reach out to me because I'll try to introduce you to the people that I think will be most helpful. But I think it's important to keep that positive attitude. I feel very lucky that the community has always been very kind to me, and you always have trolls or people that you just ignore, but I think you're going to get that regardless of your gender.
Yeah, for sure. I do want to mention that one of the slides has all of our contact information. So if anyone out there, whether you're a woman or not, if you have questions about gaming, want to get into it, just want to talk to people, want mentorship, feel free to reach out to any of us. We're all here to help support you. So if you have any questions, definitely make sure to reach out. Maybe Katie, you can kind of talk about your experiences so far.
Yeah, and I want to shout out and thank Marguerite for being so inclusive of other women in this space. It can be, especially for people who are not tech focused. So I'm on the business side. I'm probably the dumbest person at Dapper Labs. I can't build anything. And sometimes going to these conferences that are kind of geared towards developers and are deep tech, I want to learn, but I also feel really uncomfortable. And at almost every conference that we've been at together, Marguerite has created a space for me to feel comfortable and I don't know how she can keep so many people in the corner of her eye, but just has made me feel like I can come and participate, especially live. And I think that's really important. And I think it's something that I hope that I can do at some point, or that I feel comfortable enough at these events and stuff doing. But I think it's a really visible example about how we can support each other. And another thing that I think is really important, especially because the industry is very male dominated, and I come from sports. This is no surprise to me. But men can be great allies and can be great mentors and can be a great support. And without men in the ecosystem being supportive of women, we will always hit a ceiling. And so I think it's important for every male member of our teams, every male member of our Discord channels to be supportive as well, to call out people who are being dicks, to call out people who are doing things that are detrimental to the community. I think what I love about this panel is that we really focused on learning things. I don't know if I got mute or if I muted myself.
Your audio cut out, Katie, for a minute.
You're back now.
So sorry, mid-rant. We're not on this panel because of our gender. We're on this panel because we know our shit, and we can share that information with the rest of the community. And so I think if we continue to support each other and if we continue to get support from our male colleagues, there's no way that we cannot make the organizations that we work for or the organizations that we found or the things that we're doing independently more and more successful. A diversity of opinions and a diversity of perspectives is statistically shown to improve companies.
Yeah, definitely. And I think as we see more and more women becoming users of crypto and working in crypto, I mean, if we ever want mainstream adoption to happen, we obviously have to build for both sides. So if you only have one perspective, then how will you know what that experience should be like? So we definitely need as much diversity as possible. Holly, I'd love to hear from you because, you're on the tech side, which I'm sure must be super interesting.
Yes, and I only fairly recently transitioned into tech, actually. So I've only become a dev in the last couple of years. And I wanted to thank you, Katie, for bringing up the point about men who have helped you out on the way, because I've definitely found that myself. And there are plenty of men out there who, really have been extremely helpful. Because I do feel that crypto and blockchain is a male-dominated environment. And I think as a woman, you would probably, especially on the tech side, find, and this doesn't apply to everyone, of course, but it applies to me, imposter syndrome is a real thing. And it is something that everyone should be aware of, I think. The more we can help each other out, the better all of our companies and products will do. So if anyone watching wants to reach out and talk to me about those kind of tech aspects or anything on the more personal side, I'm very happy to do that.
Awesome. Carolyn, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, so really good points are being made. So I think it's crucial to have like allies, and I want to thank Nate, who is building Mintbase. He supported me. He pushed me. I've never before working at Mintbase participated on a panel, and also Sebastian from the Sandbox game. He asked me if I want to participate. So that's really great. A lot of support from male people as well, and females supporting each other. That's amazing. I might reach out to Katie or Holly, or definitely. It's super inspiring. And also I agree that sometimes people need to get called out when they are being mean, like Katie said. It's super important to also push back sometimes. And definitely for me, I have to learn a little bit to be more pushing back and say no as well.
Awesome. And I just want to give a call out to, all the women on this panel. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing. I know that, especially say for you, Carolyn, if you've never done it before, it can be really intimidating, but I really appreciate you guys taking the time and having the bravery to come on and share your experiences, because I think having more visibility around women will just make other women that are in the space feel like, hey, maybe I can go on and do that too. And a big shout out to Sebastian for, giving us all the opportunity to do this. This is really, really amazing. And I'm just so glad that you're highlighting and trying to bring more visibility to people working in this space. Katie, I know you want to talk a little bit about diversity in general.
Yeah, I feel like, and so we have here, we're kind of interjecting a gender diversity storyline. We have people from multiple countries who have called in to participate in this panel. I'm American, and I think we would be remiss not to address what's happening in the US right now, and which is making kind of ripples across the world. And I think that it's important to me, and I think we all need to address that Black lives need to matter within this community as well. Diversity is important to success, and I think that is the most important thing to underline here. Gender, like here, or race or nationality, and even in this panel, we have completely not at all addressed intersectionality and having a diversity of voices even within a female community. And I know that Sebastian is working on finding more diverse voices to amplify through this platform, which is amazing. And I really look forward to hearing other women, and especially other women of color, speak about their experience in the space. But I think we all need to challenge each other to make spaces to actively spotlight diverse voices, especially for those of us who have a platform and are visible. And if nothing else, just realize that even if our Discord communities are a safe place, the street is not always a safe place. And so, I don't know, I feel like super unequipped to be the person addressing this. But I really don't want the community to ignore it. And I think there are a lot of people doing a lot of great stuff. We should be reaching out to others and supporting each other, especially during this time where people are not feeling seen and are feeling great anger about it. So I love that we have a platform to talk about our female experience, because I think it's important to specifically call that out, but it's also important for us to support not only other women, but other people of color in the industry.
For sure, yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Katie. And I think hopefully I can speak for Sebastian and BJ in saying that if anyone, wants to speak about that sort of topic on one of the panels, and you are someone of color or kind of like a different diversity, I think we definitely want to include you. So please be sure to reach out. I think that's probably a good end to the panel. I think we can open it up for Q&A unless anyone on the panel wanted to address something specific.
I also wanted to just say one more thing, is that I think over the years, I was always pushing back about doing women-specific talks or lists. There was lots of times like CoinDesk wanted to do a women-specific list to feature women. And I always hated doing it because it felt like I didn't somehow have my stripes to be on a normal list. And so like in that inclusion, I guess it's not just that if you reach out, I would only talk to you, because you're a woman or someone of color, but like anyone that's interested in this space, I find interesting. So, and just know that I'm a safe place, I guess, or a safe space. But I guess like in those lists, it'd be really great if, I know that the Ethereum community does this with their big events. They've always made an effort to not really say like, oh, well, here's all these women, but they just actively behind the scenes work to be inclusive so that people can be blended in and showcased as a unified group. And so it makes me feel more comfortable when I'm presented that way, that like I'm valuable just for who I am, as opposed to I got that spot because I'm a woman, which I think is a sensitive thing for other people, I'm sure, too.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that's like so echoes how I feel. It's tough because it's like on the one hand, you want to bring attention to it, but on the other hand, it's like you don't want to feel like you just filled a spot just because of who you are. So yeah, that's definitely a really great point.
I would encourage us though to take that spot and then kick ass, right?
Yeah.
If you're given the chance to speak, go and ask your team, what are the best metrics that we can show? What is the best way we can share a data point that is going to actually help somebody else in the space to understand how to prioritize their features, or how to drive revenue, or how to structure a business? Because I think I also obviously have the same feeling, but I try to resist feeling that way and just use it as a platform to say, we're doing great stuff with our products and I am a major part of that. And so I deserve to be talking about it.
For sure, yeah. I'm just going to go to questions. So we have one from Crypto Mibs. How do you balance a frictionless experience with centralization? Aren't we moving away from being DApps even more? Oh, this is such a good question. I feel like we'll have very differing opinions on this. So maybe Carolyn, do you want to start?
Yeah, so frictionless experience. Well, we recently onboarded non-crypto users like photographers or people who have nothing to do with crypto. And yes, it is a pain at the beginning because, you need ETH to load it, to top up your wallet, to pay for the gas fee. But once you're set up, I think the experience is easier than actually the painful process. When you buy a ticket or when you buy something, you put in your first name, your last name, your address, your credit card details and everything. So I think once you're set up, it's actually easier. And what we've done to make it easier for people to create non-fungible tokens is or to buy non-fungible tokens, we have a credit card integration so that you can buy NFT with Stripe. So a Stripe integration, so you can use any credit card. And we support over 134 currencies. So I think that's really good as a start point to get normal people that they get familiar with NFTs and, oh yeah, I can buy it with a credit card because my parents even get it. So that's a major step, but we try to like stay as decentralized as possible. We just moved all our like NFT metadata. When you create an NFT, like the metadata is stored on the Arweave blockchain, and it's as decentralized as it can get. So yeah, so this is our kind of approach.
Awesome. Holly?
So with the sandbox, I mean, let's bring it back to first principles. It's a gaming platform with the quality of the game itself being the value proposition, right? So I mentioned earlier, blockchain is a tool. The use case for blockchain is around ownership of digital assets, digital creations, digital art. That is, as I would see it, the scope of the blockchain, and tying those pieces together behind the scenes. There are aspects of the platform that are not decentralized. And that is something that would be considered, I suppose, in terms of the overarching use case and the usefulness of making those components decentralized. As I've mentioned earlier, the focus for me and the rest of the team is really about the user engagement and abstracting away the complexity. So there's a fine balance there, I think, is how I would summarize it.
Awesome. Katie?
I love what Carolyn said about exposing multiple currencies, because I think that part of the great part about what blockchain and blockchain companies are trying to achieve is this concept of self-sovereignty, where I can make the decisions that I want to make. Maybe my decision is to use fiat currency to pay for something, but maybe it's not. Maybe I keep most of my wealth in a different kind of token, or maybe I have a whole bundle of tokens that I use, which are some I use for investment in art and some I use for investment in games, and maybe I use fiat because that's what I pay my rent with. But to have that self-sovereignty to make those decisions, I think, is truly fulfilling kind of the promise of blockchain technology. But I think that part of what I hope we see, and I think we're going to see, is that there's this huge amount of experimentation in the space, and there's all of these great projects, and we're starting to see really what is possible. And then we need to get a whole bunch of other people to do it. And the way we're going to get a whole bunch of other people to do it is to remove friction. But once those people are in our world, then we can almost ramp back up into full decentralization. And I think for us, everything has to be on mainnet. Like, that is the way that we're working. And so from that perspective, even as we're taking fiat payments, we want our projects to be always on mainnet. And so you can have pieces, like Holly said, that are centralized, but still have the core assets on mainnet. We may find that today a lot of the Top Shot game itself is centralized, but a year from now, there are 4 other games that utilize those tokens, and those have more on-chain data and more on-chain gameplay. And so I think there's like a graphic that we always use in our like inspo decks that's like a line. It's like, this is how you build products, and it starts as a straight line, and then it's just like a lot of squiggles, and then it comes back out the other end. And it's like, I don't think this is going to be point A to point B, like we're 100% decentralized the whole way. I think that as long as we commit to core pieces that we think have to be decentralized, and they may be different for each of our organizations. We may have different things that it's important to commit to chain, that we can come out the other end and then supercharge what's happening in the decentralized space. But we need other people to do it. We need to have more people come and participate. We need scale in order to make these products real businesses. So again, back to that kind of like life cycle of product.
Definitely, yeah. You need to run or walk before you can run, right? Yeah. Marguerite?
Yeah, I just want to carry on to what Katie is saying. There's different things, like why build all of this decentralization if the user that the average user doesn't want it? Why not build the experience, make it cheap and fast development where you can, and then where there is demand to build in those features with the technology. I mean, you can have the framework there with that in mind, but someday this might be wanted. That's an approach we take. And I also like in regards to the experimentation, I mean, Blockade's doing a couple things where we focus on the power user, and we're building cheap products to play with ideas, such as, I mean, Metaboss doesn't use any blockchain. Like, it's just reading data. And there's actually a lot of use cases you could do with a centralized app and just reading data of people's assets. You could create, you know, with identity, there's all kinds of fun things we can do that are not complicated. You don't need a blockchain engineer to do. And then I guess all the way to the place of like Skyweaver. This game is completely on chain, with state channels and all kinds of really fancy technology. Peter's their team is awesome, but they're targeting a very specific user, someone that really cares that all of this is immutable. And so yeah, it's just, I think we're all working together to see what does the user want, and those people who care about that sort of experience, they will navigate over there. So it's neat that we're all taking kind of unique focuses, with Dapper being very consumer facing, commercial, you know, having great places to go buy the NFTs, where great shops and experiences like, you know, mint-based OpenSea, places where you can generate the art and mint assets on demand, to very experimental projects that are supportive of bringing in the independent developer that's a game, like usually a game developer, but kind of wants to come play a little bit and has a very safe place to play. So yeah, I think we're all working on very specific areas that complement each other.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think definitely to make the space more inclusive and just to get more and more people into it, we have to build out these different parts. So like you said, for people who really care about decentralization, there's something there for them. But if somebody doesn't really want to have a wallet, then, you know, CryptoKitties or, you know, something like from Dapper would be there as well. Another question. So do you feel virtual photography using the photo modes built into games has a potential for an NFT future? Anyone want to take that on? Carolyn? Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah, so it's amazing. So for anyone who doesn't know the photo mode, they are like photographers in games and they do photos and it looks amazing. Like it looks so real, like, yeah, it's really crazy. So I think it would be awesome to have like professional photographers in games, you know, like people would probably pay for it. They could, I don't know, create an NFT. People can buy it and then like the photographer like films them or like, you know, takes shots whilst he's playing. So that would be an awesome use case to show off like interoperability and that kind of stuff.
Cool. Anyone else want to jump on that one?
I mean, I think it's interesting in something like the framework of an NBA Top Shot, where the NFTs are a moment in time. You're not like buying a player, you're buying a play that a player did in a game. You could see that framework working across other games, where I might want to own a moment that something happens, and then maybe someone, you know, makes their whole living on being the person who's really great at capturing and contextualizing that content. Because what is traditional photography other than capturing and contextualizing something that's happening in the real world in an artistic way? So I could totally see that happening across other areas of the gaming sector, but of course across the art sector as well.
Awesome, yeah. This next question is a really great
I've heard of a project before. Oh, sorry. Was somebody had a camera set up and was like automating taking photos of one area, is like out of a window, and every hour on the hour it would then update the art on the NFT with the new picture. I mean, I think there's a lot of really cool use cases you can do with that sort of work, especially just taking photos of friends. I mean, there's all kinds of things you can do with it. It's just art, essentially.
Yeah, for sure. So this question, how do you think you can influence more products or games to be built to be more inclusive of women? This is a really great one. Anyone want to tackle this?
The answer is hire more women. It's not hard. Like, think to yourself, when I'm looking at resumes, or if I'm like taking recommendations, if I hid the header of that resume, do I think this person is going to add value and make an impact in my company? I think I completely understand it. I understand that it's more comfortable to be in a room with people who share the same opinions, and it's more comfortable to be in a room with people who share the same background. You can't accidentally say the wrong thing. You can't accidentally do the wrong thing. But what diverse teams bring us is a diversity of experience that creates richer products. It creates richer experiences for our companies. It creates richer experiences for consumers, and richer experiences translated to more better users into a more better viable business. It really is a direct line between looking at your team and saying, do we all forget about what you look like, forget about male, female, non-binary, like wherever you sit. Do we always agree? Do we have a shared background where we always come from the same place? And if you do that, your products are not going to be good. They're going to be one-dimensional. They're going to be uninteresting. They're going to be something that applies to a very niche audience and not a broad audience. So do yourselves a favor and hire diverse teams.
Definitely. Anyone else want to make a comment on this?
Yeah, definitely. I agree completely with Katie. Such a good answer. Hire more women, but also maybe like allow them to rise up in the company, or more women like at the top, right? Like in C-level positions or something, because you can hire many women, but they can all work in like marketing or customer department or something like that, but they will never get the chance to rise up. But actively support women to also like make decisions.
Yeah, that is definitely a great point. And I think also giving people, you know, the opportunity to show up and do things like talks or attend an event so that they get more visibility.
Exactly. I would add that it's important that women do speak up and take speaking opportunities as well. I think there's a perception that a lot of women have that it's scary and not necessarily worth doing if someone else can take on that burden of preparation and speaking out. But actually it's super important, because it's really providing role models for other women in the space and showcasing those roles in terms of somewhere that you could traject towards. I would like to see more women-driven game creations. In particular, I'm excited to see what can happen in this space. I think that there really is something special that can happen here with women-driven campaigns, encouraging artists and creators to show up and show their creations, games, gaming assets, whatever. They can show them off. And I think, you know, if they're good, it will really help inclusivity there.
One other thing I'd like to add as like a management 101 is that if you're always hearing from the same voices in the room, you need as a manager to make space for other people to comment. Not everyone is outspoken, and this is genderless. I think it's important, again, with that concept of diversity, to think about diversity of thought, diversity of background, diversity of experience, but also diversity of style. There are going to be people on your teams who have great things to contribute, who are not the loudest people in the room. And I think traditionally, a lot of times people talk about that as giving women space to kind of take the floor and how much percentage of time men speak in meetings. But that's also not genderless. That's also kind of a genderless situation. There are going to be people on your teams who are quiet, but have really great ideas. And so finding ways for people of, you know, all walks of life to be able to contribute, again, is going to make better products.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's sort of like the loudest voices in the rooms are the ones that are heard, but how do you incorporate ways for people to provide ideas outside of just speaking up in meetings? So that's definitely important. Next question, any favorite resources or collection of resources that you would recommend for people who are looking to jump into the deep end of, the community or the industry.
Oh, yeah. Devin Finzer put out an NFT Bible. It's a great starting space for anybody that wants to know about NFTs. It's pinned to the OpenSea Twitter and Devin's profile too. But that's I would point people there. And then like as far as investors go, there's a bunch of different research that's been done on the projections for the space in the next 10 years. I don't have that on hand, but I could share it later, or you could DM me.
I want to say that they're, for any women, actually they're open to men as well, but there's a bunch of Telegram and WhatsApp groups that's open to people in blockchain and in crypto. So if you want to join any of them, please feel free to reach out, and I can always add you as well, because that's a great place to meet people. There's speaking opportunities that come up, and everybody's just very helpful. So if there, you have questions, we're always there to try and help as much as possible. Holly, did you want to say something?
In terms of resources for the space, if anyone wants to approach me more directly about tech resources, I'm happy to share. But yeah, I'd agree that OpenSea is a great starting point for anyone interested in the NFT side. I don't really have much to add on that right now, but any more specifics, feel free to reach out.
I would add to maybe if you're just getting started, try to pick a starting point, because there is so much going on in the industry, and there's so much to it's overwhelming to dive into. I am overwhelmed by it, and I spend all day in it. So pick art, pick gaming, pick sports, pick something, and then deep dive into that, because it'll open other channels for you. If you do something like the So Rare Discord is great to join if you're an international football fan, soccer in the US, because you can not only get to know some people in that part of the industry, you could better understand how their game is played. You can kind of start to immerse yourself in it, and get it in maybe a little bit more of a bite-sized way. So whether that's art through something like Mintbase or Known Origin or other places, whether that's something like Top Shot or CryptoKitties. I mean, I find CryptoKitties sometimes intimidating myself, even though that community is so fantastic and so welcoming. Pick a starting point, because otherwise you're trying to boil the ocean of onboarding yourself into something that has an incredible breadth and depth to it.
Just to add on the tech side, I have found the Ethereum community very welcoming. I think it's been mentioned already, but generally I have found it incredibly inclusive of everyone. And I think that there will be many more specific communities, depending, as Katie mentioned, on precisely the specific aspect that you're into. So with crypto art or be it something else.
Sure. So I would like to add that just do it, don't read about it, just do it. Start playing a game, create your first NFT, and reach out to me anytime. Mintbase.io, we're super reachable, and just start experimenting. It's all it's a new technology. And I remember I used to work at Parliament, and I wrote speeches about blockchain. I didn't own a single token. I didn't own any cryptocurrencies. That's not really I wasn't really a blockchain researcher, but my title was that. So it's crazy. So just do it. There's nothing to lose. You can even use a test network, Winkeby or something. You don't need to invest any money.
Yeah, that's some great advice. And again, if you guys want to reach out to any of us, we'll be sure to leave up the slide with our contact information, or you can reach out to Sebastian to get our contact information as well. I do want to also mention Crypto Zombies. That's a really, really great tool if you're looking to learn about doing blockchain development. It's a really fun way to you build games essentially as you're learning to code. So that's a really, really great site.
If anyone wants a list of blockchain resources for learning, there are so many good ones. Definitely ask.
Mm-hmm. Next question. So there's a tendency in games to sell lands. And so, games like Sandbox and Decentraland, it makes sense for them to do that because they're a virtual world. But now other games like Splinterlands are doing it. Is there a reason for this kind of trend?
Yes. It's definitely the most, it's the top selling asset. So these companies that are trying to monetize their development, it's a pretty approachable way for them to bring in some extra revenue to ship their products, in my opinion. It's like, if you know that there's an appetite for it and the market is wanting it, why not add it to your product? It's kind of like when, so Fortnite wasn't a battle royale game when it rolled out, and then they saw the other battle royale games come out, so they just made that game mode, and then it was super successful. So sometimes pivoting to what the market is, showing that it's demanding is a smart thing to do as a game company.
Yeah, I guess part of the danger in that is like you might get to oversaturation, but we're still pretty early on. So
yeah, well, if you think about it, the NFT space is so small, even in consideration of the Ethereum community, that there's so much room to grow. If you're talking about saturating just your current user base, like we're not going to grow at all, then maybe. But I think all of us are working to expand quickly into the Ethereum space and then beyond that.
And I find it really, so in our case, for example, we bought land in Crypto Voxels. It's also a VR game. And we have our virtual headquarters there. So we actually own an NFT. And because we own the NFT, we can edit, and we actually put up the art from our customers up in our virtual headquarters. So for us, it's like a lot of value. We do meetups there and we do talks there, especially now with COVID-19. It's like a super, super great home as well. And it's super, super fun. So I think it has a lot of value.
Holly, did you want to speak about this since you're kind of definitely in that space?
So, yeah, I mean, I think it's correct to say that it's relatively early stage. We had a terrifically successful pre-sale today where the lands sold out, I think, in 5 minutes. So from our perspective, there is a huge demand for crypto assets through gaming, and there will be more pre-sales. I think we're going to see more companies in the space, and yeah, I guess a virtual land sale is a new kind of funding mechanism that I think will be quite popular for a short time. I'm sure we'll see variations of it as well as the use of NFTs and the use of blockchain in gaming kind of evolves. I'm excited to see where that will go. Yeah, I think it's an incredibly exciting space, and I think today is just one example of how there is such a demand for new approaches to gaming and digital assets.
I have a land question for the group because I'm like very much a mainstream consumer still, even though I sit within this space. Do you, and I may not ask this in the right way, but do you feel like, how do you feel, do you feel beholden, or how do you feel about your responsibility in making that land valuable in the future? I don't know if that's the right way to ask that question. Just like as somebody who, like, imagine me as an outsider, like, how am I investing in land? Because I think in something like Sandbox, that is expected to be like a Nintendo console, right? I'll go in, I'll play a bunch of different games. There's all sorts of stuff that'll happen in that space. And so in that way, you're beholden to the land being successful because it's your ecosystem being successful, I think, if I've interpreted that correctly. So please correct me if I'm wrong. But I'm curious about what the conversations you have internally are like about what is our responsibility to make that investment successful? Do we have a responsibility to make that investment successful? I mean, angel investors throw money at stuff all the time. Most of it fails, some of it succeeds. Hopefully our stuff succeeds. But I would love to hear more about how those conversations happen internally.
I can't speak to the business conversations, given that I haven't been at the Sandbox very long. But more generally, I would say that there are several components to this. So the gaming standards, where if you're a landowner and you want to build a game with your land, it will need to meet certain requirements in order to be launched, is my understanding of how we will release the game creator. Although, of course, I've mentioned that is subject to feedback from the selected group that are reviewing the game creator at the moment in terms of how that will look. And then I think really it will come down to the overarching approach of platform development around the SAN token, the utility token I mentioned, and how the governance actually looks around the community as a whole. So there will need to be standards there to ensure that those lands retain their value, and that the platform as a whole and the SAN token retain or increase in value as there is growth. So it's quite a complex scenario, but those are the sorts of considerations that we have.
I would say that, so not land, but with the Neon District assets, for example, assets that we have put out there and people have purchased, like, we feel very much like the entire reputation of the company depends on us delivering on an experience that is going to make those assets feel pretty magical. And not only that, but the game is designed in a way where they feel like those assets can become more valuable. So I guess for us, there's been like, even with the pre-sales that we had done, I mean, there's a little bit of regret, I think, that we had sales when we did. Like, maybe we should have waited. Maybe we should have been a little closer to the game being ready to go. So there's some things we would do differently. I think in the future, when we do big sales like that, it will be alongside the product being playable at the time.
We're kind of back to that like market economy question, right? Centralized gaming is easy because you're paying into it and you don't expect a retention of value in there. When you start to add in those economic forces of retaining value and growing in value, you start to like add this whole other level of complexity.
Yep.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because when people play, like traditional centralized games, when you buy something, there's no expectation that that goes up in value. And even though you're paying the same amount of money, potentially, because it's an NFT, there is this expectation around that value creation. So I think that's definitely a really interesting kind of like mind switch there in terms of the psychology of players as they're buying into these items.
And we don't also we try not to push that this is an investment as much as this is a collectible game asset and something that, to focus on the obvious, that this could have sentimental value. But I think promising return is where you enter the security space, right? So it's important to be careful, especially when doing pre-sales and whatnot. Like, we're a US-based company, so we have to be pretty cautious.
I think it would be interesting to see if this shifts as well, because I think a lot of the people who are, users of blockchain gaming right now understand the technology a little bit and are looking at it as wanting to own some of that real world value. But as more traditional gamers come into the space, that might actually shift because they have a very different mentality. They care more about that experience or that sentimental value. And so the idea of value behind NFTs might actually shift as we start to see more mainstream consumers come into the space.
I mean, for something like NBA Top Shot, we are like extremely cognizant about the collector community, not just the like trading card collector community, but the sneaker collecting community, of the merchandise collecting and memorabilia collecting communities. And I think also as we find ways to tap into those motivations and to serve fans in better ways, those things will have value to them. And it goes back to what I was saying about thinking that there is intrinsic value to these things. There is something about a moment in time from a basketball game that matters to me, whether it matters in game or not. And so those kind of economies, I imagine, will kind of drive themselves in some ways. If the things that we're creating have value to people, they will have value to people.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, yeah. Okay, so one more question. And I just want to say a big thank you for the audience who have been listening in. They've just been so wonderful. So many great comments, so many great questions. So thank you all for the people who have been watching. It's just really awesome to get feedback from you guys as we're doing this. So last question, do you think there's opportunities with companies for those of us who have a really good grasp of the NFT landscape from multiple angles? So for example, collectibles, art, community building, digital ownership, etc.
Yeah, I mean, I think actually there's a better opportunity for you outside of our industry. There are so many traditional industries that are trying to understand this and trying to get a grasp on the space. I would encourage anyone who has a deep knowledge of the NFT space to be an advocate out to other companies. I imagine in the very near future, every major brand is going to have a committee that is looking at blockchain and looking at NFTs and looking at blockchain from a consumer-oriented perspective. In the beginning of 2018, when we spun Dapper Labs out of Axiom Zen, and I started going into corporations and talking to them about what we were doing, which is consumer-facing blockchain, almost all of them had already explored blockchain from a process efficiency standpoint and had not really considered it from a consumer engagement standpoint. And so understanding the NFT space and understanding where it can go would be hugely helpful for those outside of our space as well.
Definitely. We should speak at more events like outside the blockchain community, because you always see the same faces. We all know like, what is an NFT? What can it do? Yeah, it's great. But we should really like try to speak at other kind of events as well.
If you're VC backed, pressure your investors to help you with that. Our investors have been extremely helpful in finding us opportunities to speak in mainstream forums. And we might sound like I would also encourage you to practice your presentations around mainstream friends, because the first couple ones we did, we sounded like crazy people. But there is a huge opportunity, you're right, to get outside of the community and be advocating.
I was invited to speak at NASA last year. It was this NASA, like a bunch of CEOs and execs. But I had to put a presentation together about non-fungible assets. And we're talking like a lot of these people don't even know about the cryptocurrencies. Like when you realize how niche you are and how much that you talk about regularly that you just assume your friends know, the ones we interact with, man, my presentation was so like stripped down as far as, what is a Bitcoin? And anyways, but those events, when I did that, yeah, I met all kinds of people from different walks and spaces, and them understanding that the technology and application of it could touch their space was really interesting, because it really does. Non-fungible assets actually can touch almost every space.
Yeah, this is what I was going to add there. It will be so interesting to hear about new potential use cases where those different, I guess at the cross section of those different areas. So where we've talked about art displays in a digital world. What else can we do in the digital world? But what else can we bring outside as well and advocate in terms of blockchain gaming, but also more generally around how we can use NFTs and collectibles and things like that in the space. I think there's so much to do there, and we don't even know about a lot of those use cases yet.
And it's so, I really think like in 5 years from now, like in Sandbox or in some other games, like you can just walk around, you see like a big pizza shop, you see like a pepperoni, salami pizza and vegetarian option, and you just buy the NFT, and in the background they have your address, and then you get the pizza delivered. So like it's gonna get really crazy, and like the same with like shopping and retail and everything. And it's we don't even know yet, but we know that is something super big, and we are just exploring it right at the start. But there's no way this current financial system as it is now is the future. Like there's so much creativity happening, like so much like positivity as well. And I think it's just gonna take over. It's just a question of time.
I do want to say one thing, just to add on to like both pieces about adoption wider, but also with women being leaders. So men historically market themselves better. Like I guess the data shows that they take more time with their LinkedIn. They just really sell themselves and they put themselves out there more. Women, it seems like from data that they like to work behind the scenes. But if we were to all together be writing more blogs, being more visible at this early stage, then as we grow as an industry, not only does your user base and your personal brand grow, but it really does give the opportunity to have this really fun, eclectic community that we all want to love and protect, and not have it hijacked over, by corporates. Or in the future, we can maintain and grow this really cool, artistic, creative space. But it's important to, as we're early, to really capture the opportunity. And I hated doing YouTube videos. I hated public speaking. And people just kept making me do it. So, and until you take the opportunities when you get them.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a great point. It's like, when you're initially going to do it, it's really scary. But as you do it more and more, you get more practice, then it just becomes more second nature. And so again, if anyone wants to take the opportunity to be a part of the BGA presentations, then I would highly encourage you to do that. Awesome. Well, I want to thank the speakers so much for taking the time and sharing some really, really amazing insights and experiences. Again, if anyone wants to reach out to any of us, please feel free to do so.
Thank you so much, Cynthia.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Deb.
And really a very rich discussion today. A lot of viewers, a lot of questions and engagement from the audience. I think it's the first time I see so many comments. Thank you, etc. So I'm 100% supportive to the cause of including more women and hiring more women. And I highly encourage other founders as well to do the same and to listen to the advices that has been given today. And we'll continue this series of events next week with more speakers that will also share their experience on different topics, but all as well as much interesting as today. So thank you, Cynthia, for hosting and preparing all these great questions. Thank you, Caroline. Thank you, Marguerite. Thank you, Katie. And thank you, Ollie, for participating. A big round of applause. All right, goodbye, everyone. I'm ending the broadcast on this. And if you have any more questions, feel free to reach out to them directly. Here's their contact details again. Thank you.
Thanks, Sebastian.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Bye.